Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Jefferson County Board of Education meeting on Monday, August 13th. If you would please stand and join us with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Superintendent, do you have any comments this evening?
I think we're going to have a comment-filled evening and we'll be good.
All right. The approval of minutes for the regular board meeting held July 23rd, 2018. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any questions, comments, or additions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Citizens' comments. I am so excited to see so many people interested in our education system this evening. Welcome to our building. I just want to remind everybody that we are not able to make comment or make any kind of remarks to your statements. This is a chance for you to speak to us, not for us to speak back. We have a pile here. We ask that you please be courteous and keep your time to 3 minutes. We will be cutting you off at 3 minutes. If you have an extra word or two, maybe, but not an extra 2 or 3 sentences, because we will be here until Wednesday. Mrs. Ogden is going to be our timekeeper, and she will...
You know I don't like doing this because I hate cutting people off, so please do not take it personally when I say your time's up, or if you hear the buzzer.
But
Could you tell us 10 seconds before or something?
I can if that doesn't feel like it's interrupting you finishing.
Just wait, like put your hand up.
I'll just put my hand up and you'll know it's 10 seconds and then you'll hear the alarm. How's that?
I think that would be.
All right. Okay.
all right. What I will do is I'll call the person that's speaking, and then I'll say the name of the next person, so that person can be ready so that we can move through this to use everybody's time effectively. The first person is Mr. Roger Snyman, and then the second person is Jay Mansfield.
I've got my own timer here, so it'll shock me if I'm over time. Let me get the right screen. I'm ready.
Okay.
My name's Roger Snyman. I'm here representing myself as well as citizens concerned about Rockwell. I'm here to speak against the location of the plant where it is, and in fact against it being located in our county at all. I'm going to read a little bit out of the pilot agreement. It says, providing certainty and soundness in fiscal planning and promoting the present and prospective prosperity, health, happiness, safety, and general welfare of the public school students in Jefferson County. I've read the pilot agreement. I've seen what the plant's going to spew out, and I don't see where prosperity and health in this situation equal the same thing, and I can't understand how sound fiscal planning is delaying taxes for this board. I think both of those comments that unfortunately the board signed on are not true. It's obvious to me that the board, this board and other boards and other commissions did not understand the entire project before signing their pilot agreement. I don't think anybody in their right mind would think this is a good fit for Jefferson County or being located as close to schools as they are. I'm sure you were told about 150 jobs. You weren't told about 200-foot smokestacks. You weren't told about 100 tractor trailers. You weren't told about 280 tons of a known carcinogen, PM 2.5 and 10, that unfortunately can't be filtered at all by the human body and is a known carcinogen. For a person like me, that would be unhealthy. For some of these students that have compromised respiratory problems, I don't know what to really say. You all and the citizens were sold a pig in a poke. I can imagine when signing time came around that someone was saying, you have to sign this now. Hurry, hurry, they're going to go somewhere else. Unfortunately, we signed it, and we have to find a way to stop that. I've got a 3-point program that I think can help the citizens and help yourselves. I'd like to see you to come out as a group, either individually or as a group, condemning the pilot agreement, especially the tactics of the JCDA and Rockwool, And the consistent claims of transparency, obviously, were not transparent to you. I'd like to also to review how well your council took care of your situation, how they looked into what was best for the school board, not necessarily what was best for Rockwool or best for Jefferson County or best for Ranson. What was best for the Board of Education should have been their only focus. And I believe that probably was not their focus. Thirdly, you have a representative that you can appoint to the JCDA. There's a board of directors that are probably 15, 20 people. The board of directors at this point does not control the situation. The executive director does. I implore you to appoint a strong person to this position, get control of the executive directors. They should be working for the board and not vice versa. And as a consequence, I just think they allowed the polluter to come into this community without being a good idea. Sorry. Thank you.
So now is Jay Mansfield, and next up is Nancy Gregory.
My name's Jay Mansfield. I've been here 25 years. I have a bachelor's degree in human physiology and chemistry, 5 years drilling and producing oil wells, 3 years as an industrial chemist treating hazardous waste, 22 years in infectious disease surveillance and mass casualty identification. The systems I've created are now used by Interpol, CIA, FBI, and DOD, and also nearly every county health department in the United States and worldwide. Methanol is a hazard. It's coming out of the stack. It's poisonous. There's enough coming out in a year to kill the entire Baltimore-Washington corridor 3.9 times. That's 1 million pounds. What they really say is 940,000 pounds. Okay, let's roll it over. If there's a fire at the school or at the plant when they're loading methanol, they have to, by the CDC's requirements, they have to extract a half-mile radius around the school. The school is 0.46 miles away from the plant. So that means the school has to be extracted. The way you do that is you put the kids on a bus after you've put plastic on all the windows and tape them in, and you make them wear their gas mask. I don't know if you know this or not, but when you're teaching a kid how to use the gas mask, the first thing they do is take a breath. They don't get a second one. It just doesn't work that way. 8.3% of the children have asthma. That means 207 of them directly downrange are getting hit by this thing. The African American kids, when they get hit by asthma, they get hit 2 times as hard. There's nothing fair about that. And they need a voice. Children are not average. They do statistics on average. We're average. Children are a fourth of our size. So we can take 2 aspirins. They can only take a half an aspirin. We can take 2 pollutions. They can only take half of one. So you've got to watch out when you're talking about downwind in a school. Rockwell was deceptive. We had some people drive to Mississippi and take some pictures of the Byhalia, Mississippi Rockwell plant. What they found were 6 containers that are cryogenic containers full of methanol and ammonia, and they are chilled by 4 chillers. Now those chillers are redundant chillers. The reason they're redundant is because if they don't chill, those 6 tanks will explode. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. The problem with North Jefferson is when you stand there and you look at it and you go, you know, this kind of looks like it's in a trough. Well, it is. It's in a trough, and when you get an inversion of temperature and you add that methanol to the equation, all of the children are now in a jam. I got some more, but
You're more than welcome to submit written comment as well if you don't finish, or even if you
actually,
do
I'd prefer to
finish.
brief you personally because I've got some other things too. Is that possible? Sometime?
Not tonight.
Yeah, right, not done.
I'm a little booked up tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have Nancy Gregory, and after that, we have Jennifer Jones.
Should I start?
Yep.
Okay. What is happening here is pretty obvious. A multinational, highly polluting company has manipulated its way into beautiful and relatively clean Jefferson County, West Virginia, via Charleston, the EPA, and our local government, with undoubtedly some people's pockets getting padded along the way. I don't believe that your pockets have been padded. You have just been pawns. With the best intention, the school board agreed to this fiasco by signing on the dotted line and agreeing to a non-disclosure clause. Since the citizens became aware of the short and long-term dangers of this company's industry through research and scientific knowledge, it is now obvious to us all that this plant does not belong in Jefferson County, where we have our children and families, schools in close proximity, farmlands, and recreational areas. In fact, the consequences could be devastating and definitely irreversible. This plant could turn Jefferson County into Flint, Michigan, or Love Canal. Could you really live with yourselves if you didn't do everything you could to stop it? Could you ever sleep at night if this area turns into Cancer Alley with our children dying of cancer in 10 years? Think of every breath of every child each day in the schoolyard. Please don't succumb to the pressure and intimidation of the players who are trying to shove this down our throats despite so much fierce opposition from us. We will stand by you. Take a stand against Rockwell and save our children and our people. You are protectors of our children, so please protect them. Rockwell won't sue. Are you kidding? A multinational company suing a county of people in West Virginia or the state because we want to save our children and land from toxic industry? We are 7,000 strong, passionate, and growing. We would all be over every environmental group in and out of the country for an international boycott of Rockwell. They will pull out, just like one of the players mouthed when the sewer bond wasn't a slam dunk. It's on Facebook, by the way. If you have the power to help stop this right now by withdrawing all support from this plant, you need to do whatever you can do. Formaldehyde is illegal in the European Union, but Rockwell can spew out 67.6 tons annually, and that is only one of 20 chemicals. Just because our government cares more about corporations than people doesn't mean that we have to take it. This is not a matter of a little safe or a little dangerous. Ask yourself, is this safe for our children or not? The answer is yes or no. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, and then next is Summer Hart.
I'm Jen Jones. I'm a West Virginia native. I'm from the Kanawha Valley. I am downriver, grew up downriver for 18 years through high school of Chemical City. And many of my neighbors and my mother personally had cancer. My mother died of lung cancer. She had 5 types of cancer throughout her life. That's directly attributable, in my opinion, and many other researchers, to Chemical City, being upriver. We lived on the Ohio River, our family did. I went to Shepherd and fell in love with Jefferson County. And I never in a million years thought we would be standing here talking about industry and chemical plants in my backyard. And I'm pissed. I've been in Jefferson County now for 20 years, and we are at a moment of truth. We can go forward and industrialize, which is the plan, all of Route 9, and industrialize with heavy industry Jefferson County, or we can do another direction. We can maximize and exploit the fact that we have national parks all around us. We have clean water, we have clean air, we have basically unmarred skylines. We have an opportunity to be the next, Aspen East. We totally could do that. We have it in our power to be the tourist destination in the East Coast. That's the direction I know this is not your purview, your Department of Education, I understand that. And you have influence as to whether or not we take that direction or we go forward with industrializing all of Jefferson County. It will break, I think, everyone here's heart if that's the direction we go in. The other thing I'll say is something that Nancy said, you can't go back. Once you've soiled in your own backyard, you cannot go back. This is a decision that will last forever in our county. Finally, it's my understanding that some of you signed a non-disclosure agreement about this, and that is not okay. Inclusive government is a democratic right in this country. Leaders include their constituents in decisions that personally affect them. And this is personally affecting me, my nieces and nephews, and many of these folks in this room and this county's children. I implore you to do what you can to stop this development. Thank you.
Summer Hart and then Kirsten Lee.
My name is Summer Hart, and I have been a resident of Charlestown for over 25 years and a critical care RN for more than 4 decades. I want to talk with you about a little girl that I took care of several decades ago and about community. Webster's dictionary defines community as the people of a district or county considered collectively, especially in the context of social values and responsibilities. Gloria was 15 when I first met her. That is not a real name. HIPAA says I cannot say her real name. She lived in a heavy industrial valley, and she was one of many with respiratory diseases such as asthma, COPD, emphysema, autoimmune disease, and cancer. It was a low socioeconomic community. They could not afford to move out. 100% of the physicians in this little rural community lived outside of the community, and they spent 1 to 2 days per week, then went back home 2-3 hours away and lived their normal lives. 90% of the professionals were what we called travelers, and these comprised the RNs, lab, x-ray, and respiratory therapists who worked 6 to 12-week assignments, then left. We medical professionals all knew living there would equate to death and disease. We were fortunate enough that we could choose to live there or not. Gloria was one of our ER regulars. She had severe asthma and required frequent epinephrine shots, a breathing treatment, and medication that needed to be infused over an hour. She was a small girl. She never grew because she used all of her energy just trying to breathe. She lived her life through milestones. It was a big deal when she hit the double digits and was 10 years old. Then she became a teenager. Now her next milestone was her sweet 16th birthday party. Over the last few years, she had really gotten upset about she always had blue lips. And one of the house cleaning ladies said, "Oh, I can fix that." And she brought the brightest cherry red lipstick and painted her lips one night. And from then on, everybody knew who Gloria was because everybody could see her a mile away. Gloria decided the day after Christmas that her birthday party was going to be a day before her party because her birthday was on a Monday. So the countdown began the day after Christmas. The town indulged her. They loved her and her spunk because that's what community does. Donations were made for her party, her hair, her clothing, her nails, her limo. Everyone brought food, and she was queen of the day because that's what community does. Because her birthday fell on the Monday, she was going to have it on Sunday. At 5:30 on Sunday, she came in respiratory distress. She got her shot and her breathing treatment, but she refused. Bottom line, she died 6 hours later. I implore you, say no, take care of our kids. Don't let them die. Thank you.
Kirsten Lee and then Cheryl Levine.
I'm Kirsten Lee. I live in Carneysville, about 3 miles as the wind blows from the proposed plant. So I'm close enough to be severely impacted, but not close enough to have a voice. I've got some extenuating circumstances going on at home, so I'm going to read off my paper just to help keep me focused, so I hope you'll forgive me. Thank you, first of all, for hearing us out. We understand that the air emissions report came out after you voted the first time. We understand that because the project was fast-tracked, no environmental impact study has been done. We have not yet seen what the 40,000 gallons of wastewater discharged per day will hold. We've not yet seen what the 100,000 gallons of potable water demanded per day will do to the wells and the aquifers in the region, what the 100 trucks per day will do to our roads, our traffic, our air, and our runoff water. Decisions of this magnitude cannot be made without due diligence which has been woefully lacking. In the past few weeks, concerned citizens from a spectrum of relevant fields have taken on that due diligence which was shirked by our elected officials. We have literally thousands of pages of independent documentation concerning the wide variety of ways Rockwool will negatively impact our community, ranging from health, infrastructure, and the environment to economics both on a personal, county, and corporate scale. They don't give us much time to talk tonight, so I won't barrage you with this information, but ignorance is no longer an excuse. You now know the research is there to be evaluated, and we're happy to point you in any directions you choose. I am going to use this time to urge each and every one of you to step up to the plate. We're told as citizens that we have no voice in this decision, which will forever transform our community and our environment. Parents are told they have no voice in this decision, which will impact their kids throughout their entire school career and possibly cause health effects that will haunt them throughout their entire lives. You all have that voice. We elected you because we believed that you would be our voice, be our children's voices. Throughout this process, not a single citizen has spoken in favor of Rockwool, and with every hearing, the numbers speaking against Rockwool grow. You'll be voting on whether or not to give millions of dollars of our money, our taxpayer money, to this foreign corporation. Voting yes is in distinct opposition to what you're hearing from the taxpayers themselves, from the citizens who voted you to be that voice. You can join the conversation that's getting louder and louder that Rockwool is a bad fit for Jefferson County. At the very least, demand independent facts and thoughtful, complete deliberation before making decisions for all of us that will forever change our region. Bring yourselves up to speed on the science, the economics, and the ethics that are at stake here. Be our voice. Thank you. Our kids, thank you.
Ms. Levine, and then after is Tracy Cannon.
That's me.
Okay.
Forgive me if I get emotional, because when I feel passionate about something, sometimes I cry. So, hi, my name is Cheryl Levine, and I moved to Jefferson County 42 years ago when I was just 3 years old. I am a product of Jefferson County schools. I went to Page Jackson Solar School the second year it opened. I went to Wright Denny when we were called the Wright Denny Bombers. I attended Charlestown Junior High, Jefferson High School, and then Shepherd College, now university. I have been a teacher in Jefferson County for 20 years, and I am here tonight to speak on behalf of the children of our county. I had the pleasure of standing with some of you as teachers fought for better health care and pay. And I stand with these community members as we fight for our health and beauty of this county. Last year, I was proud to stand with you, but I am not proud at the part that our Board of Ed has played in bringing health risks to our community. We need to stand up for what is right in our community because it's important, and we are standing together for our future. As a teacher, the safety of our students is of the utmost importance. With so many dangers to school communities now, we practice code reds, code yellows, codes white, and so on and so on. We are taught that in dangerous situations, we need to think fast and keep our students safe. And if it came down to it, I would protect those children with my life. So here I am today, standing before you to protect our children from our own elected and paid officials. I know some of you personally. You have children and grandchildren in our school system. If you have done or had done the research and found out what at least 7,000 community members have managed to document in 3.5 weeks, and you are still 110% positive that the children of North Jefferson, T.A. Lowry, Jefferson, Wildwood, and Driftwood, which are the closest schools, have no potential risk to their health, short or long term, from Rockwool, would you happily send your children to one of those schools? Would you send your grandchildren to one of those schools? What if there is a risk? Because the data shows me there is. Would you buy a house within 2 or 3 miles and live in harmony with Rockwool? There is a risk. It makes me sad and mad that so many officials and governing bodies are not hearing the community when we say we are not willing to take the risk with our children and our health with the chemicals that Rockwool will spew out into the air. I ask you to stand with us, with the children, stand with our schools. There are too many unknowns and too many risks. Thank you.
Crazy Cannon, and then after that is Kevin Hall.
The crying thing's contagious. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. And thank you for holding a long meeting and listening to everybody. We really appreciate your attention and your concern about our issue. A recent Board of Education statement said, "We are conscious of the fact that we serve thousands of conscientious and involved parents, including the future employees of Rockwall and their children. This implies that the parents of young children attending Jefferson County schools will end up being the employees of the Rockwall Company." The first thing I thought when I read this was about my experience working in heavy industry alongside many co-workers who were the parents of young children. At the printing factory where I worked for 7 years, they used toluene in their process. Men who worked on the presses got what is known as male pattern baldness from working around this solvent. Many also said they had issues of infertility, and many women employees believed their babies' birth defects may have come from this chemical exposure. Here's a quote from a Glassdoor review of a Rockwall factory in Ontario, Canada. "Dirty inside with insulation dust floating through the air. They even take air hoses to the machinery if you want to be force-fed insulation. Walk through wet insulation to get to the punch clock. The warehouse is not insulated. If it's -20 outside, it's -20 inside. 12-hour rotating day and night shifts. The long hours and 12-hour night shift also took their toll on workers at the printing factory. Many parents of young children who were friends of mine said they rarely saw their children, given the fact that they had to sleep during the day. They often felt they were not able to spend quality time with their children due to their exhaustion. We do want jobs for our neighbors here in Jefferson County. We do want growth, but we do not want the kind of jobs where employees feel they are sacrificing their lives to support their families. We want jobs that improve our neighbors' quality of life, not ruin it." Thank you.
Kevin Hall, and then is Jason Murphy.
Members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, thank you for letting us speak tonight. My name's Kevin Hall. I currently live in Shepherdstown, and I love Jefferson County, West Virginia. I consider it to be my home. I've lived in the county for over 40 years. I've raised my 2 children here through the school system. My parents, my brother and sisters all live here, along with my 9 nieces and nephews here in this county. So I was hoping to retire here, watch my children prosper, and perhaps raise their children here. Now I'm not sure what the future of Jefferson County is going to hold. So I'm going to put my ending statement in the middle in case I've run out of time. So I'd like to express my opposition to the building of the Rockwall plant, and as well speak for our children of the county who can't speak for themselves. And I would also like to encourage you as people of influence to express your opposition to this. Speak out. Formally withdraw your support in any way. And why not even revoke the pilot agreement? Anything is possible. So some people define the quality of life as having a lot of money, but the actual definition is the standard of health, comfort, and happiness that you experience. So I think we have an outstanding quality of life here in Jefferson County. We have a quality education for our kids, beautiful scenery, clean, fresh air, a rich history, outdoor activities, local produce and crops, agriculture, and all types of activities, cattle, horses, but our most valuable resource is our children. Who do you think is going to take care of things once we're no longer here, and may even be taking care of us in our later years? So this plant's going to be very close to schools, as we know, one within right across the street, 3 others within 4 miles, 2 within another 6 miles. So not to quote a whole bunch of statistics, but 155,145 tons of pollutants. So if we base that on our county's population of 60,000, that's 2.58 tons per resident of the county. So would you volunteer to go into a sealed room and breathe in these list of pollutants, irritants, particle matter, and poisons, carcinogens? Probably not. But even worse than that, would you put your children or grandchildren in that same room? Certainly not. And according to Science Magazine, children going to schools near buildings with smokestacks releasing large quantities of pollution have developmental ailments, including asthma and cancers. So I urge you, as people of influence in this county, withdraw your support, speak out, take a stand. Thank you.
Jason Murphy, followed by Abigail Rosa.
There's been a lot of great speakers tonight that have impressed me. I almost wish I could give my first 3 minutes, or my 3 minutes, to the fellow who went second tonight. They videotaped this, so please watch him again. He had facts and knowledge that you need to really remember. I kind of feel like, even though this wasn't your domain of development in this county, it was an embarrassing omission of due diligence on your part to get all the facts. I do realize, however, that the statement of the pollution came out after you guys had agreed to the pilot program. But now you know. Now you know. You, above all, are responsible for our kids. Your decisions. And we don't take that lightly. There are, as you've heard, 4 schools very close to this. Maybe, however, it wasn't a lack of due diligence, but bad advice. It's come out that your legal counsel is also the same one that Rockwell has, and a lot of people are finding that to be a conflict of interest. You maybe be going on some bad advice legally. This plant's going to have a smokestack that's 200 feet tall. There's a reason for that. It's to get the pollutants up into the air high enough that they disperse over a wide enough area. I hope none of you are like the one commissioner who said he believed that the air coming out of those smokestacks would be better than the ambient air we're already around. They don't make them 200 feet tall for no reason. But we don't live in the plains. We don't live along the seashore. If you've ever been to the fireworks displays, you'll see what happens with the smoke. It just hangs here. It doesn't go and disperse because we have a high humidity and we're in the mountains. That pollution is going to go up 200 feet and it's going to stick here. It's not going to blow out over 5 states and be dispersed. We're going to be having it rain right back down on us. You've recently gone through the uproar when students were being moved to different schools. Imagine what's going to happen when a third of the parents say they're not sending their kids to T.A. Lowry or to North Jefferson. Imagine what you're going to be dealing with then. I'm going to be short, but I want you to know this is not a political topic du jour. This is not going away. We're not showing up just tonight. We'll be back the next meeting if we need to, if we don't see you act. We'll be at the commissioner meetings. We'll be at the Ranson meetings. We're not going away. This doesn't end this week. It doesn't end next month. It ends when we stop this. Like I said, you made your decisions before you knew. Now you know. Now you would be really responsible. And you will be the faces we remember. Please be the faces we remember well. Thank you.
Abigail Rosa, followed by Donna Joy.
And there's 100 people out here.
Hello, my name is Abigail Rosa. I've attended Washington High School. I am currently a senior, and I've also than at an environmental school in Wisconsin for high school. And for those reasons, I cannot see this happening. I don't support it, and I don't think it's okay for you to be in charge of high schoolers, middle schoolers, and elementary schoolers' lives. West Virginia is known for being wild and wonderful. Small communities and abundance of wildlife lives here. But how long can we live here before we are sick? The National Cancer Society concluded that Rockwell products are possibly carcinogenic to humans. Will children that grow up here be told that they have been diagnosed with cancer at a young age? How long can we stay here before we are forced to move away because of the environmental impacts from the company Rockwell has caused? Jefferson County is filled with agriculture that could potentially be ruined with chemicals from the Rockwell factory. Farmers will lose their jobs and lose their farms, leaving them with nothing. I hope that Rockwell knows how much the people of Jefferson County care about this issue and that we will not give up until the kids, wildlife, and land is safe. Please take a minute to acknowledge the 7th generation rule. How will this affect the community, land, and wildlife in 7 generations? If this company is welcomed into Jefferson County, West Virginia, West Virginia will no longer be wild and wonderful. Thank you.
Donna Joy, followed by Marianne Abenizio, sorry.
Hi, I'm going to try to talk about things that weren't mentioned. So my name is Dr. Donna Joy. I have advanced degrees in special ed, psychology, and neuroscience. I worked at the Kennedy Krieger Institute from Johns Hopkins University. I treated, evaluated, tested, monitored kids with head injuries and kids that were exposed to chemicals, including lead and other toxins from their environment in inner city Baltimore. Most of those children, many of the children that I tested had an average IQ of about 75, which is mentally retarded. A large percentage of people that end up in our prisons are mentally handicapped, and a lot of the people that end up on public assistance are mentally handicapped. So I understand that the school board agreed to sign off on this agreement because they'd hoped to get some tax money eventually down the line, 10 to 12 years from now. But I assure you that any money that they may pay in taxes, that's going to go to some of these other expenses, treating these kids with the learning disabilities and the hospitalizations from the medical problems that we've already discussed, etc. One other thing that hasn't been mentioned, right now, our biggest polluter, or actually 3 combined, produce 18 pounds of toxic emissions in Jefferson County, 18 pounds. The plant in Mississippi, which is smaller than the one proposed here, produces 832,000 pounds of toxic emissions. So just remember, 18 pounds versus 532,000. And these are all things that you can get off the internet. That's about all I can remember. Thank you.
Thank you. And after Marianne, we have Robert Gillette. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to start off by saying thank you, first of all, for letting me speak. I think all of us have been a little bit hoodwinked by a foreign company coming into our county and offering us what was presented as probably a decent deal. I believe, and I include myself in this, that we all dropped the ball a little bit on this. In our defense, I believe the way this came about was pretty unethical and done a little bit below the radar. Those who should have been looking out for our best interest did not. Unfortunately, now for our children, we've failed them in that respect. There are those in positions of leadership and authority in our county who I do believe bear a tremendous brunt of the blame for where we find ourselves now today. There are those who are tasked with conducting due diligence who simply did not. In turn now, you, me, all of us here, need to act in a way that will protect not just our land and our agriculture here, our water, our air, but our children, our most important commodity, our future. I stand before you today as a concerned citizen, a scared mother, and an astounded emergency planner. You see, I'm a mom to 3 children in the Jefferson County school system, but I'm also by trade an emergency planner. I've worked in states, counties, local jurisdictions throughout the country as an emergency management contractor to the Department of Homeland Security. I've worked on Capitol Hill in the Senate Sergeant at Arms as an emergency planner, and most recently, just as an independent consultant in the emergency management field. I cannot, for the life of me, understand how our county believes that this hazard belongs so close to so many of our children. I believe that if you were to ask anyone in my field, they have great concerns regarding the location of this facility. I know you can't answer these questions, but rhetorically I'd like to ask you so that you know, I'm wondering if Rockwell has provided you, the Board of Education, emergency plans. Have they provided them to the county to review? Does Rockwell have its own hazmat team, fire team on site? I'd like to know if you have all looked into what kind of hazmat response our county has, the adjoining counties. Should an emergency incident take place at this facility, or even with the trucks coming in and out of the facility? Have you looked into the mutual aid agreements? Have you looked into how often those teams train and exercise? I know Jefferson County's all hazard mitigation plan was just revised every 5 years. I don't think this was included in it. Have our school plans been updated to address the latest and greatest hazard? As an emergency planner, I'm not satisfied that our county is prepared to handle a disaster of the magnitude that this facility could produce here. And if you don't know the answers, and then even scarier, if these answers can't be provided to you, to your satisfaction, you have to stop this now. There's nobody involved in this who can plead ignorance to the facts that have been presented over the past few weeks regarding Rockwell. In the case of the water contamination in Flint, Michigan, the children of Flint were poisoned by a policy decision.
Ma'am, I'm sorry.
And I'd like you guys to think about your decision.
You're more than
going
welcome
forward.
to submit it in writing.
Thank you.
And after Mr. Gillette, we have Keir Knoll. Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm Bob Gillette. I'm a 30-year Jefferson County resident. I have 2 kids, and they've both gone through the Jefferson County schools. I've participated in a lot of the council meetings around the area, along with the protests, and I've greatly sympathize and support all of the concerns that everyone is talking about. There's one thing that bothers me, though, and I started thinking about how did we get to this point where we have a possible 200-foot pipe putting terrible stuff out, potentially, across the panhandle. And from what I've been able to see, the main approval was held with Ranson because of the home rule and Governor Justice's expediting of business development into the Panhandle and the state itself, which, I mean, those are noble causes. But why should people who live in the Panhandle be not included in the process of approval just because of this arbitrary legislative geographic cut? And I would hope that whatever comes out of this, that we do a thorough examination of that existing approval process. I can't find where you're involved in it, but that's because I probably haven't had time to. But I think we all need to know who gets in on this and what do they look at, and what is everybody's consideration being considered? And I'll stop drifting on. That's my main point. Thanks.
Thank you. And next up is Bobby Block.
Hi, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you tonight. This county had a nickname, it was called Apple Valley, and there's a number of businesses here that have adopted that as their trade name. And in fact, the largest apple orchard in the county was sold 2 years ago to somebody, and that's the site of the future Rockwool plant. And so we're trading in the symbol of Apple Valley for Smokestack Valley, I suppose. And I can't imagine that anyone would want to come and visit such a place as that. When I was walking in, someone who couldn't be here gave me plume models that were prepared by James Ramusi from Sustainable Solutions. And I don't have enough copies for everybody, but I'll hand this to you. I can't elaborate on the science behind this because it was just handed to me, but I think due diligence would suggest that you contact James Ramusi and ask about those plume models. They include the 4 schools that are in the direct line of those models. And just commenting on the amazing skill set on demonstration tonight with the people that have talked, and just the people I've encountered in this county, there are just amazing people. And I think that we can take a much more positive step than to make this a factory county. We have the most arable land of any county in the entire state of West Virginia. And we should do something with that. We should have a food hub, for example, where we aggregate farmers' produce and attract institutional buyers, and also have something maybe like the next common market. We could have a common market here. There's some jobs. The JCDA, as I understand it, before I got here, built a warehouse for a trucking company that skipped town the day their tax abatement expired, and it sits essentially empty now. And I understand that Rockwool has the same practice in some of its other factories. So maybe this overblown expectation of 150 jobs is a mirage, and it's only temporary. And maybe what you're introducing into this county is 150 new cancer patients, which will manifest after Rockwool has left town. Please don't do that. Please step into the future. The food hubs are a very cool, actively developed area, and it's good for ecotourism. There's other people here that are developing the idea for an equestrian center. We could attract people here that use the assets of this county. Its arable land and its location are just incredible, and to put a factory in the heart of Jefferson County, I think, is just an unimaginable mistake. So please, I'd like to ask each and every one of you to have a change of heart and do what you can to stop this from happening. Thank you.
And after Bobby Block is Emmett Fremo.
I want to thank the Board of Education for opening up their doors and listening. I've been watching and I'm seeing you truly are listening, and people are talking about their hearts, and that is so critical at this particular time, especially the hearts of our children. As an advocate for children for over 40 years, both here in West Virginia and in DC, I am so impressed with the community and their organizing capability and their ability to share so much documentation. And I'm also impressed with the school board, as I said, opening your doors and also being willing to listen. And I truly pray that you're listening. I do not have all the scientific facts that have been shared tonight, but I know, for one, I will be getting on the website and finding out what's happening. Rockwool is toxic for our children. That's the only sentence that needs to be remembered tonight. Rockwool is toxic for our children and our future. I want to share with you a quote that's been a real inspiration for me, and that is by George Bernard Shaw. Life is no brief candle to me, but a splendid torch I have gotten hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it over to future generations. That torch is not a 21-story smokestack spewing toxins Our children deserve better than that. And I know you realize that, or you would not be sitting on the school board. You didn't ask for this to come. This came before you, and now you have the opportunity to step back and say, we need to reprogram. We need to reassess. We need to stand up for our children, and we need to echo what is being said tonight, which I am so impressed with, that people have come forward and said what was needed to be said for our children. I realize that you yourselves can't stop it and just say no to Rockwell, but you can say no to the toxins that our children will be subjected to if Rockwell is allowed to come into our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And after Emmett, we have Emma Huvas.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for opening your doors. I've been really impressed as a 6-year resident of Jefferson County who grew up in the petrochemical corridor of New Orleans and saw a lot of my childhood friends die of various cancers induced by environmental pollution. And when we got here, we were taken by the beauty and the quality of life, and it seems that it's like the secret that everyone who lives here shares. Aren't we lucky to be in this beautiful place? Because it's beautiful 24/7, 365. You know, but you know, what's happened is, I hate to use the analogy, but it's sort of like, you know, the Deep Pocket Boys got to Mayberry, and you know, Floyd the Barber and you know, Goober signed off on an action that is clearly and utterly a threat to the quality of life in this community. And it's quite pernicious the way it was done. We've heard about the pilot agreement, the NDAs that were signed, all the pressure that's been put on by the Rockwell Corporation, what they've done in other locations. You know, it's just amazing how good they are at doing this, that all of this information has not come out until now. Most of the people here, including me, didn't know about this a week or two ago. Suddenly, we're all finding out about it. So what's gonna happen to sort of go back and replay this thing so that there can be an assessment made that really embraces impact on quality of life, and particularly because of your responsibility on school children who are going to be going to school underneath this smokestack and are going to be swimming through layers of ozone that are going to come right down and create all kinds of problems. In addition to the congestion, you know, the factory corridor threat, all of the things that go against the natural resources and the assets that we have in this already prosperous and growing area of West Virginia. It makes no sense. But the problem is, how are we going to stop this? You know, and I would suggest that you've got a responsibility that supersedes whatever documents have been signed, whatever NDAs have been issued. You have a responsibility to the school children. That's the only thing that you really have to be cognizant of and to protect. And I don't see any reason why you can't be just as revelationally informed by the last several weeks about what's really involved in this and your responsibility to prevent this from happening to the schools that are nearby and the other schools that are in the vicinity. But in a larger sense, if your role is about public education, isn't it appalling that the public has literally gotten no education about this project? Give us a chance to actually get educated by doing something to slow this down. Stop it, come out against it, and get another look by the citizens of Jefferson County. Thank you very much.
After Emma, it's Marjorie McCauley.
Hello, my name is Emma Huvos. I live here in Charlestown, and I'm an early childhood educator with a background in nature-based learning and outdoor education. My work is guided by extensive research on the many ways in which spending time outdoors supports children's healthy growth and development. Think back for a minute to your own childhood. You probably spent countless hours playing and exploring outdoors. Those experiences shaped you in powerful ways. But things have changed. Studies show that the average child today spends just 4 to 7 minutes outside participating in unstructured play each day and more than 7 hours in front of a screen. Many experts believe that the increase in childhood obesity, attention deficit disorders, and mental health issues is directly related to those trends. Why is this relevant? Because kids need time outdoors each day in order to support their healthy growth and development. And if it isn't happening at home, then it falls to schools to ensure that children are getting those types of experiences. That's why the American Academy of Pediatrics emphasizes the importance of daily recess, which it calls a necessary break in the day for optimizing a child's social, emotional, physical, and cognitive development. Can Jefferson County schools honestly expect to fulfill their obligation to provide children with daily outdoor recess when the current site for Rockwool's plant is in such close proximity to 4 schools? The ozone created by the plant's emissions is expected to be a serious trigger for childhood asthma. Many parents have already expressed concern about the release of large quantities of formaldehyde, a carcinogen known to have especially harmful impacts on children. Can you, in clear conscience, guarantee the parents of Jefferson County that the Rockwool plant will have no negative effect on their children's health and well-being? If the answer is no, then I ask you to please keep in mind an item from your own Code of Ethics, Section 1.8 in the Jefferson County Board of Education Policy Manual, which states, remember that the first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of the students attending the public schools. It is your responsibility to seriously consider the full ramifications of the Rockwool plant's location on the health and well-being of Jefferson County's children and to make a public statement on your stance on the plant. Thank you.
After Marjorie, we have Jan Hafer.
Good evening. Thank you for listening to us this evening. I can tell just by standing in here and seeing all your faces and watching out front, you all are truly listening, and I appreciate that. I can see the concern on your face. I believe that you, as well as the rest of us, we still don't even know the whole scope of this. We really don't. There's facts that we don't have yet, and I just implore you to. There's so many pieces to the different agencies and different people, but you do have a piece in it. And we just ask that you use your input and your powers towards the education of our children to tell them that they at least have to put the brakes on. We have to know what's going to happen to these kids. Everything's important, the ecology, the animals, all of us are important. But our children, they're so much more... they're going to be, thank you, vulnerable to the effects of the things that we don't know. And not knowing is not a way to carry forward and take a chance with our kids. A couple generations down the road, maybe 20, 30 years, when we find out that the kids can't have kids or they're dying of cancer, is way too late. It's so much easier to stop something that doesn't look good than it is to try to fix it afterwards. And I thank you so much for listening. My kids went to these county schools, my nieces, my nephews, grandkids going to these schools, been here for 42 years, and I look forward to you guys looking out for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you. After Jan, we have Dr. Joseph Bocciero.
Hi, my name is Jan Hafer, and I'm a retired teacher, 38 years, with 21 years as a teacher trainer. I'm also a grandmother of a student in Jefferson County Public Schools. I understand the majority of the school board members signed off in support of welcoming Rockwool to our community. I also understand that the school board support was given prior to the disclosure of the list of toxic materials that constitute the emissions from the daily operation of the Rockwool facility. I hope that given an opportunity, you will withdraw your support until you are 100% confident that these emissions will do no harm to our children. I also ask that you withdraw your support for this company until you are 100% confident that the huge increase in traffic on the roads near our schools will not increase traffic accidents. I know that each of you take your responsibility for the safety of our children very seriously. I'm asking you to recognize the very real threat to our children's health and safety that the presence of this plant poses, and please withdraw your support for Rockwell.
After Joseph, we have Bob Gillette.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Joseph Boccaro III, but please just call me Joe. And my doctorate is in education. I spend my career in education buildings and am amazed at the wonderful efforts the architectural community has had on encouraging buildings to have clean air inside, fresh air. They're in the codes now, and I'm picturing this deliberately entered toxic air coming into school buildings that are designed to accept fresh air. When I was growing up along Lake Erie, just south of Buffalo, New York, the air smelled, the houses were black and yellow with particulates and sulfur, similar to what we're looking at here. And the skies glowed at night from the flames at the top of the smokestacks, burning off the volatile organic compounds, the VOCs, and from the molten slag exploding into the lake water. My father worked at the steel plant as a chemical engineer in the byproducts division. When President Nixon started the EPA, people were worried that pollution controls would cost too much for companies to remain profitable. A common phrase was that the pollution in the air was the smell of money. Lake Erie was dead. We lived to go to the beach but could not go in the water, and the Love Canal was 15 miles to the north, but that's another story. We lived with the smell of money, and people became sick with the mesothelioma, lung cancer, and emphysema, and died, including my own father. So here we are in Jefferson County, where people come from all over the world to hike, get on the waterways, and gasp at the fantastic views. They live here and raise their families, willing to commute long distances to Baltimore and D.C. They enjoy the great outdoors, where the air is clean. So have we learned nothing? Our politicians smelled money in the form of a rock wool plant, and we know now that this deal stinks. We know that this polluting plant will stink and will be an eyesore in the midst of our homes and schools. We know that once this Pandora's box of toxic evil is opened, it will be nearly impossible to ever shut it again. Not only do the politics stink, but the economics stink, the financing stinks, the environmental guidelines stink, and the regulations and the impact on our roadways, skyline, and environment stink. Everything I have learned about this project stinks. The smell of money all over again. I thought I got away from that to come to this beautiful place. I want the smell of money in Jefferson County to continue to come from the mountain air on the constant breeze that I moved here for, and that countless people will enjoy in the future because of the reversal of your decision to welcome Rockwool. I respectfully call on you to reverse your decision. And thank you. May the fresh air be with you.
After Bob Gillette, we have Terry Fielmeyer.
Bob's gone.
Okay. Mr. Fielmeyer?
I don't want you guys to miss. Thank you.
Bob Gillette. Yeah, Bob Gillette. There she is.
Okay, then we're on Terry Fielmeyer.
Could I go instead?
She'd like to.
I didn't get on the list. If he's not here, can I?
No, sorry, no ma'am.
Sorry.
But is Terry Fielmeyer ready to speak?
Right here.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, and I appreciate your giving us time. My name's Terry Fielmeyer. I've been a mechanical engineer, design engineer for 52 years, and most of which I have designed are boiler plants, chiller plants, sewage treatment plants, and chemical factories.
I can relate to many of these issues because as I was at Olin Chemical in Baltimore one day, they had a minor hydrogen sulfide leak which laid me on the ground, and the next thing I remember, I woke up in a hospital. And I've had asthma ever since. And that is just one of the particulate matters that are being discharged from the stacks here. But a little history, I think, is also required. In 2016, Ranson was contracted by the Jefferson Development Authority to see if they were interested in a large client development, but they were not informed who it was. Later on, the information was derived as to who they were, but because of the possible negative influence in the community, they called it the Shuttle Project. That's just another obfuscation. When it got further along, they insisted that everyone sign a non-disclosure agreement, which all the parties did, including the Board of Education. But many of the parties that signed did not have an idea of what they were signing. From one of the development guys, I learned that he really didn't have any idea, but they said they were going to bring jobs here, so that was good enough, okay? We only learned about this a couple of weeks ago, and literally we've got thousands of people that are now very concerned about this. We must now fight the battle ourselves and with your help. I would close with a quote from the Independence Day movie and Dylan Thomas when he said, "We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We will continue this fight as necessary all the way up to the Supreme Land Court of this land." So I hope you listen to what we've said and take into account that we're really serious. Thank you.
Next is David Tabb, followed by Lynn Baccerio.
David Tabb, Jefferson County resident, lifelong, with heritage and rights given to me by my forefathers since 1636, when my family has been here in colonial Virginia. I am a steward of the land. I have been given that inherent right by my parents and their parents before, and on and on and on. Everybody has talked how beautiful Jefferson County is. It's that way because of my due diligence and my neighbors. I read a bumper sticker coming in. Make America green again. Jefferson County is already green. I am also on the Conservation Board. And even though I'm not a voting member, I do have input. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation does not know about this. They do now. And with all of these structures of pollution, they're bringing in toxic material to make a toxic material. And if you haven't been notified of that prior to, shame on you, because I've known about it for 18 months under false names, false pretenses, going to the county commission, voicing my concerns, and your name is on the lease in lieu agreement. You got something. I have already found out how much several other entities have gotten, and it's millions. I don't know what you've gotten or what was sold to you or what was told to you, but I will challenge you. I have challenged you before. I have challenged you to the U.S. Supreme Court. That was just a practice. My legal team is standing firm. I'm a pro se litigant. I have attorneys on my team now. I am first chair. I will challenge you to the end of time. That is my goal. This is not a threat. This is an absolute promise. I have been fortunate to live here in this county. I've been fortunate to be the son of Lyle and Virginia Tabb that have passed. I carry their honor. I carry their spirit. They have taught me to be the way I am. I do not stand here as an educated person. I have a high school diploma. But I challenge anybody, including the U.S. Supreme Court justices, at any time, at any place, anywhere. I think I've gotten your ear. And with that, I'm assuming my time's up.
Yes, sir.
Have y'all met any of my friends?
Thank you. And after Lynn, we have Beverly Ross.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Bocchiaro. I don't have an area of expertise and I'm not a scientist. And I haven't lived here with my family for years and years and years. I moved here with my husband Joe, who speaks more eloquently, just about a year ago. This was going to be the last time we moved. It was so stressful. And it was so beautiful. When we came looking for a house and drove around here, we said, I can't tell you how many times we said, it smells so good here. The air is so fresh. And we found a lovely house that has a bedroom on the first floor in case I can't walk anymore someday. I said, this is where we're going to stay. This was where we're going to stay. And I've made some new friends. We walk the dogs through the neighborhood. This isn't what I wrote yet. And how many times I've said to my friend, smell that air. It's delicious. And we love it. And now, this is in jeopardy. And I may not know all the scientific stuff, but I know that I came here to this beautiful place to buy a house. And I know the people that are going to be moving here to buy a house in this beautiful place aren't going to want to move here with a big, ugly, smelly, toxic factory here. And they're not going to want to send their kids to the schools here. So if we want growth in this area, this is not going to bring people in. People are not going to say, hey, I hear there's a great factory job. Let's move there. I don't think that's going to happen. I'll read some of my written comment. After reading the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection report, I am sickened. By Roxel's own estimate, they will release over 155,000 tons of pollutants yearly, including several possible, probable, and known human carcinogens. So I ask you all, how can you, or anyone, possibly believe this will be good for our children and everyone living in this community? How can you believe this will be safe? If you were not well informed when you made your initial decision about rock wool, surely you are all informed now. You can make a vow tonight to this community, to the parents who are trusting you to make the best decisions for their children's education, health, and safety, that you will now do everything in your power to stop rock wool from locating here. Please, this is your chance to do the right thing. Thank you.
And after Beverly, we have Jamie Olmsted.
Hi, my name is Beverly Ross. I'm a resident of Jefferson County and a concerned citizen. The two primary sources of data that I will quote from comes from the rock wool permit that's dated April 30th, 2018, and the National EPA website. First and foremost, the primary risk threatening Jefferson County relates to the environmental impact and subsequent health risks that the toxic air pollutants could potentially cause from the manufacturing of a mineral wool product referred to as rock wool. The rock wool permit lists their estimate of 5 of the 6 regulated pollutants by the EPA. Based on rock wool's estimates, the air quality index for sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide is considered unhealthy for sensitive groups. Sensitive groups are defined as people with asthma or other respiratory diseases, the elderly, and children. These are the groups most at risk. The cautionary statement reads, active children, the elderly, and people with lung disease such as asthma should reduce prolonged or heavy outdoor exertion. The air quality index for the estimates of carbon monoxide from the Rockwell plant is considered very unhealthy. People with cardiovascular disease should avoid exertion and sources of carbon monoxide. There's also historical data that can also be found on the EPA's database under the tab My Right to Know section of the website. Every facility that emits toxic air waste is required to report their annual toxic release inventory. The data includes records within the last 3 years. The comparison of these facilities will give context as to the toxic air pollutants that Rockwell will produce. All quantities are reported in pounds and are annual quantities. Here in Charlestown, the Ox Paperboard LLC reports 5 pounds of pollutants. The U.S. Customs Border Protection Advanced Training Center reported 6.3 pounds of air pollutants. The O'Sullivan Films Incorporated, located in Winchester, reported 10,417 pounds of pollutants. The Argus USA in Martinsburg reported 12,062 pounds of pollutants. The Continental Brick Company in Martinsburg reported 44,605 pounds of pollutants. The Rockwell plant in Mississippi, which many say is comparable to what we'll be seeing here, if not even smaller, then we may have larger, reported 532,509 pounds of pollutants. The ExxonMobil refinery in Beaumont, Texas reported 731,237 pounds of pollutants. I have identified these risks only using public data and the name Rockwell. What other risks will the children of this county encounter, and who will determine what is acceptable? After a risk is identified, a risk mitigation plan must be determined. Will the school board accept the risks as is without further due diligence? Will you decide to cut recess short on the days when the air quality index is high, or will you ask for funding to move the school a little further away? I want to conclude, just say no. Thank you.
After Jamie Olmsted, we have Lou DeBaca.
Hi, I'm Jamie Olmsted. I have a child at North Jefferson Elementary. He is going into 5th grade this year, so potentially he will be gone by the time Rockwell operations begin. However, I am having trouble sleeping at night, worrying about him going to school on Monday, knowing that the soil, which is toxic from arsenic and all kinds of other things at the orchard, is being pulled up and there's dust all in the air and he's going to be right next to it. We moved from Loudoun County because we had a traumatic experience in our lives, and I'm 8th generation Loudoun County and spent a lot of time in Jefferson County as a kid. And we moved out here and I felt welcomed and I felt safe. And I felt like this is where we wanted to be, and we rented for a few years, and then we bought our home. And I can't imagine, I couldn't have imagined this happening in this community that I thought, had the same kind of mindset as me, that was, bucolic in nature. When I told my son about Rockwell, which I just found out about 3 weeks ago or so, I think most of us did, the first thing he said to me was, we have to move. And I think that he's kind of said it. There's no, let's give them a chance, nothing like that. With the briefest explanation to him, he was able to come to that conclusion. So I have done nothing but try and stop this since I found out. And my child is my life. And I just ask you to take 1% of that effort in your power to stop this from happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou DeBaca. And after Lou, we have Lorena Chambers.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having this session tonight, for hearing all of us, and more importantly, for raising your hand and standing for election. It's something that's tough, and most people shy away from it because their neighbors might come in and tell them how they feel about things. So we're really glad that all of you not only volunteered to do it in the first place, but continue to do that. I retired recently from federal service. I prosecuted child abusers and human traffickers around the world. And our watchword in court was that we had to act in the best interest of the child. And sometimes that meant even dismissing a case and letting a bad guy go while watching him for the future, so as not to put the child through the pain of having to relive that or things like that. And that's a really tough burden. It's a tough burden for a prosecutor or for a child advocate. It's a tough burden for our educators, and we recognize that. But that's what we asked you to do. That's what you volunteered to do, and thank you for volunteering. It's not in the best interests of our children or this county or this school system to have 100 semis of coal slag and heavy rock destroying these roads in front of our schools. We prefer the 100 buses that are out there bringing our children every day, the buses that you and your folks manage. We don't want to have the decision made in the morning as to whether air quality or an accident at that factory are going to stop the buses to run. You guys have put a lot of thought, time, and effort into the weather stations and the decisions you make every morning during the winter about whether our children are safe enough to travel over these icy highways. That's the decision that we need you to make. It's not in the best interest of these emissions that you've heard about from others and the effect on students and staff, to having these school buses and emergency plans that will have to be at the ready, not to take kids home because at the end of the day, but how the heck do you get those kids out? Which way's the plume? How do you get them to the west when Route 9 and Old Route 9 are going north and south and taking the kids right in the middle of it, even as you're trying to get them out of that school site when the inevitable leak or explosion happens? And it's also not in the best interest of our children to move backwards from the knowledge economy and the resulting educational excellence that we're striving for. Industrializing a county does not make its schools world class. I challenge anyone to tell me otherwise. So please, I've got 3 requests. Act in the best interest of our children. You didn't know of the emissions when you voted for the pilot because none of us did. Whether there was an NDA for you or for some of your colleagues in the county, other reasons why you didn't know about it. Please re-examine it. You can do that if you were misled or if you did not know everything. Please withdraw from the pilot. Have your attorneys figure out how to back out. I would much rather pay my taxes for your lawyers to fight for us as opposed to subsidizing a foreign company. And finally, have your representative on the JCDA vote against the 3rd reading of the water bond. If that water doesn't come in, this doesn't get built. And if you don't have a voting member on that board right now, insist that they delay until you do. Thank you.
After Ms. Chambers is Lori Maloney.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Lorena Chambers. I moved my business from Washington, D.C. to Jefferson County for 2 specific reasons. One was to be able to add to the tax base here in Jefferson County and to become a voter. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm here today to ask you that you rescind your approval of the pilot program for Rockwool. It was an agreement that you all entered without knowing all the facts, as none of us knew all the facts. And I'm asking you to lead the movement among all of our elected officials here in Jefferson County, and even those that are appointed in Jefferson County, to make sure to do the right thing and to stop heavy manufacturing in our county. You are all, each and every one of you, at a historical moment and at a critical crossroads. Like John Brown 150 years ago, who just a few blocks away paid dearly with his life for standing up for what was right, and I'm hoping that none of that is similar here today. He paid with his life for doing what was the right thing and the moral thing to do. And that's why I'm asking you that it's not easy to do the right thing and moral thing to do when the waves of society or corporate America are pushing and flowing one way. Thousands of children under your purview, the very reason why you ran elections, you campaigned, and you are devoted public servants. Thousands of children under your purview will be exposed to invisible poisons and toxic particulates that none of us knew about, and that is why your leadership tonight and in the future is required. This historical moment is one where you stop misleading Rockwell propaganda and stand up for our children. This historical moment is where you stop the cronyism of Charleston along with Steptoe and Johnson once and for all. And this moment is within your control and really will decide our county's future for the next 150 years, which it actually will and can shape the leadership of our entire country. By taking this stand at this historical moment, you will not only lead Jefferson County and the state of West Virginia, but you will be leaders across the country. Thank you for your time.
And after Lori, we have Morgan Sell.
Okay. Thank you very much. I am a mother of a 2.5-year-old who will attend North Jefferson Elementary. I also am one of the organizers in the Citizens Concerned About Rockwell movement. I'm asking you to make a public statement opposing the project because it is too risky for our school children, staff, and our teachers. You alone may not be able to stop this project, but others are watching you. Rockwell is watching. The public of Jefferson County is watching. Nearby states are watching. Our public officials are watching. And I implore you to take a stand and be the first public officials as an entity to adopt a resolution opposing this project, because this will give others courage to do the same. This doesn't seem difficult to me, but if it seems difficult and conflicting to you, look at the risks and rewards. The rewards may be 150 jobs, possibly improved utilities to some of your schools in the area. We can get those via other means. The risks, air quality losses, water quality risks, drinking water, the Potomac River, safety, noise, traffic, the loss of confidence of the public in our officials and in the decision-making processes that impact our way of life. It's hard to imagine that which we haven't seen. On air quality, Rockwell tells us they're not smokestacks, there's no smoke. That's because the more dangerous matters are ones that we can't see. I want to tell you about something, PM 2.5. You can't see PM 2.5, and that very aspect of it means that it is the most dangerous of some of these particles that we're talking about. 2.5 means 2.5 microns. A micron is 1/25th of a thousandth of an inch. For reference, 5 microns is the size of most bacteria. A blood cell is 6 microns. Hair is 70 microns across. We're talking about 2.5 microns. It's stealthy, and it evades most of our body's defenses. It goes deep into our lungs. Your airways don't have a way of ejecting these particles out. It passes into the bloodstream, and it is known to increase the prevalence of cardiovascular issues and heart attacks. In people living in areas with high PM 2.5 counts, they are known to have an increased risk of early death and decreased lung function. And this is especially true for our youngest and our oldest. And if you think that this is too risky, then please say no to Rockwell. Thank you.
And after Morgan, we have Chris Kinane.
Dear members of the board, thank you for holding space for this meeting. I really appreciate it, and so do everybody else here. The days of not speaking to our children are over. Now, I was born and raised here in Shepherdstown, and I went through the schools, and I graduated in Jefferson High School in 2008, and I went through the school at Shepherd University, and I'm a certified K-12 art teacher in the state of West Virginia. I'm a youth leader at a local Presbyterian church and a mother of 2 boys, ages 5 and 1, one of whom suffers from asthma, and that's another story. I plan on continuing to empower the youth within my circle, within the realms of earth care and activism. Now, how are the teachers and how are you going to respond when the children and the parents come to you with questions about why you said this was okay for our world and for our county? I believe that there is no more room for keeping the truth from our children. We set the bar for what is important for our students. What will they think if we put smokestacks and heavy industry over creativity, athletics, and the beauty of our land? What are we promoting by putting our children's lives in danger so that 150 or so other employees can go and risk their lives as well? I am committed and will repeat now. Now is the time to tell our children the truth. It is my job as a youth leader and mother to communicate with them honestly. And when I leave here, I will pray and pray and pray. And just like with any other big decision in your life, I hope you go home and I hope you pray. And please, if you don't pray, I hope you sleep deeply on this matter. And when you make the decision that you're going to make, I ask you, please be crystal clear. Thank you.
Is Chris here? And next up is Karen Glennon.
Chris is here. I'm Chris Weimer. I could speak instead.
Sorry. Nice try. Persistence, it's great.
That's what we learn here in West Virginia. You just keep trying.
Karen Glennon. And after Karen, we have Kathleen Taylor.
Thank you all for holding this meeting and listening. I really appreciate it. Everyone who has stood up here has talked about rock wool. I'm going to talk beyond rock wool. Because if rock wool is built, there will be more heavy industry here. I attended the Ranson City Council meeting where Rockwool had a representative. I believe he was in charge of their communications, global communications perhaps. His name is Michael Zarin. I talked with him after the meeting and I said, we had a brief discussion. They've never had this kind of opposition to one of their plants, he told me. And I said, this isn't really about Rockwool. This is about bringing heavy industry to this community. This is about changing the very fabric of this community. This community is not heavy industry. This community is river recreation, it's clean air, it's beautiful view sheds and vistas, it's history, it's well-preserved and taught history. We have national parks, the Appalachian Trail. We have a university that brings cultural events. This is about celebrating Appalachia. The Shepherd Appalachian Festival is a wonderful thing. We embrace history. It's not about your company particularly. It's that we don't want industrial, heavy pollution in our community. And I said, if your plant is built, you're not going to haul heavy coal and heavy rock in trucks for very long. You're going to build the rail line to your plant and you're going to more efficiently move that material on rail car. You're going to get the water and sewer there. You're going to have the natural gas pipeline. You're not going to drive trucks on these little roads. There's plans to connect directly to the 4-lane highway. And he stood there and he let me talk. And when I was done, he did this. He just gave the slightest little whole torso nod. Rockwool is the start. That's a large parcel. There's 130 acres there, right across from a school. Rockwell will not be the only company that builds. I'm sure they'll build a smaller sister site producing a secondary product just like they've done in Michigan, Mississippi, where they're located. And there is other industry that will come when all that infrastructure is there. Do you really want a school across from that? I would like for people to think beyond. The community has really mobilized and really educated ourselves, and this community is full of an incredible number of scientists and people with real expertise. I know there's fear-mongering. I know people are afraid and concerned, but there's real expertise here. And I would like to leave on the note of thinking about the seventh generations from another speaker before me. There's a Grateful Dead song that has a quote I really love. We don't own this place, though we act as if we do. It belongs to the children of our children's kids. The actual owners haven't even been born yet. We are the stewards of this land, and what choices are made now are going to be remembered. And if they change it irreparably, it's not going to be a positive thing. I won't stay. From a financial perspective, if this industrializes, it's going to bring property values down. Lower property values mean lower assessed values. Lower assessed values means lower tax values. Lower tax collection means less money for schools. And it will impact this community and the education and the quality of air, because children are more susceptible beings, as many have spoken. It will affect them negatively, and I would like to see this not happen here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Taylor.
Hi, I'm going to defer my time to her.
We can do that.
Because everyone has spoken. Basically I'm a parent of North Jefferson Elementary School student.
That's fine. After Kathleen, we have Sarah Gabrielson. And could I get your name, please?
Christine Weimer, Branson. I am the 14th generation of my family to be from this valley. When my ancestors, Isaac and John Van Meter, came over the North Fork of the Shenandoah, they saw the beauty that I see today. And we're sharers. She shared with me. We just don't want to share with Rockwell. And I'm just going to explain my angle on this to help you better understand how this might affect the kids, which is what you guys are all about. So I'd like to thank you for being here today, and I really like to thank you for letting me talk, and thank you for your service, because I know that you guys do a great service. I'm an equine veterinarian. More specifically, I'm a board-certified equine surgeon. The air pollution from the Rockwell plant poses a risk to the equine industry in Jefferson County. The risk is that the small particulate matter that other people have talked about will pose a risk to the performance of the horses, cause poor performance in the horses. That is documented, that those particles cause poor performance in horses. You may think, what does the equine industry have to do with the school board? But the thoroughbred industry provides millions of dollars in state and local taxes each year, and tens of millions of dollars. In 2011, $219 million into the local economy. That's a lot of money. And many of the jobs in small businesses are affected, but if not directly within the equine industry here. If the equine industry is negatively affected, will there be children that go without because their parents work in industries that are negatively affected because the equine industry is negatively affected by Rockwell? Will they have to go without school supplies, health insurance? Will they go without sports equipment? Will they go without being able to participate in things that they're passionate about, like I was able to in Jefferson County when I was little? Will they go without friends because their friends had to move away? Will parents and children be affected by diseases that are made worse? Like a friend of mine, when I was growing up, had cystic fibrosis. She would have been negatively affected by this. Will there be a bright young track star, like I was able to share the track with when I was little? I was not a star, but she was, that will not get a track scholarship because she gets asthma instead. So these are the things that will limit the potential of the Jefferson County youth. And that is how the equine industry affects the youth that you guys are in charge of protecting. That would keep me up at night. It keeps me up at night thinking about my nieces and nephews that will be negatively affected if the business that they rely on for their parents' income is negatively affected by this plant. And so I ask you to be leaders, toe the line, stand up and stand against Rockwool with us. Thank you.
And after Sarah, we have Greg Byrne.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to all of us tonight. I'm not an eloquent speaker like most that have gone before me, and I come to you today as a concerned parent. My daughter, which you probably saw sitting on the floor with me, is going to be a student at Drisswood Elementary. She's going to be in kindergarten, and it's an exciting time for us. And that excitement is now fear, because she's going to be going to a school that's in a 3-mile radius of this plant. She'll then go to Wildwood and Jefferson. She would spend her entire education in this county within 3 miles of Rockwool, or whatever other plants come after. We live within 4 miles of the plant site. She would have no respite from these particulates, which I'm not a scientist, I don't know about that, but it's scary. I just ask, what is a school board prepared to do? I know that we don't have a lot of money in West Virginia for our schools. Our teachers fight for raises. What kind of filtration systems will be in place in these schools and all the schools in the county? What safety measures are going to be taken to ensure that these kids have clean air to breathe? So I, like many before me, implore you guys to take a stand and say that this is not safe for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Byrne. Byrne. B-Y-R-N-E. Would you mind?
No, it's fine.
Please, thank you.
Of course.
And after him is Ned Marshall.
She's looking outside. It doesn't seem like it.
A lot of these facts that people are talking about are on toxicrockwool.com, the EPA and all the information about the chemicals.
Ned Marshall.
Hello, I'm Ned Marshall. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts here. I appreciate your hard work and your graciousness in having us here. I'm a lifelong citizen in Jefferson County. In 2014, I had a double lung transplant. To my body, my new lungs are foreign and need to be eliminated. So my immune system has to be suppressed. I wear this medical mask to protect my lungs. I live about 2 miles from the site of this proposed industrial facility, so the particles and chemicals that will be spewed in great quantities will be especially concentrated. This plant is an existential threat to me. It will kill me. It's a death sentence. And I'm not the only one. There are many others with compromised immune systems and lung diseases like COPD, and the young and the old. For me and these other many citizens whose lives are put in imminent danger of death, I ask you to help us in any way you can and say no to Rockwool. Thank you very much.
And that is the end of our citizens' comment. Thank you very much to everyone for being patient. We greatly appreciate everybody was very respectful, and we just appreciate you being here and taking the time to be here.
Hey, thank you.
Now, everyone is more than welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. We don't have anything about Rockwool on our agenda this evening, so we won't be speaking about it anymore. But if you'd like to be tuned into our education system, you're more than welcome to stay. All right. So next up, we have the consent agenda items.
There are no changes to the consent agenda, Mayor.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
All right. Any comments or questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, we have action to approve the transfers between Berkeley and Jefferson County.
Yes, ma'am. And you will note that there is exactly a one student difference between transfer in and transfer out between those.
Okay. So do we have a motion? We'll take 10 first, 10A. Action on approval for students from Berkeley County to Jefferson County.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh,
Discussion.
Discussion. Did you have a question?
Yeah, Mark went first. Can we have this on last time's agenda?
We typically put it in August's agenda for students. If we've had a specialized one, maybe Pat can speak to that.
Yeah, you did some earlier on, generally, what our policy says we do those in an August board meeting.
So this is not in addition to?
These are in addition to what you did earlier.
So it is more than 7 then?
Pardon? Yeah, those are additional, right? There's a total of 22 going to Berkeley County and 21 coming to Jefferson County.
So the difference is still 1.
Is it possible to have the school and the grade level that they are going into put on the agenda? I mean the form that we look at. Okay.
Do you need that for this evening or just for future reference?
For future reference. I like. Well, if you could get it to me later, I just want to see. Are the students moving in elementary or are they moving to high school? It'd just be good to see.
If you don't mind waiting for that information, if we could make a budget perfect, because school's going to be starting before our next meeting, so that would be an issue. All right.
Information only.
Perfect. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And then next we have number 11A, action on approval for students from Jefferson County to transfer to Berkeley County. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Same thing?
Same thing.
Perfect. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Number 12, action on approval of contracted services for the 2018-19 school year for federal program.
So moved.
Do we have any?
Mr. Blanc? Federal program contracts?
Mr. Ebersol.
Mr. Ebersol? Thank you.
Are there any questions? To be honest, there are a number of positions that we contract for, including interventionists, school improvement specialists, instructional coaches, serving a variety of our Title I schools as well as other schools, to be frank. We're able, through federal programs, to provide academic coaches that serve the entire district as well.
Is there any new positions?
Any new positions?
Any that we did not have last year?
No, sir.
Can I ask a question just for informational purposes? If someone was interested in, say, being a reading interventionist, is that something that we usually, was previously a teacher that then moves up into that position? Do we look for those from, anyone? It could be random, it could be outside, it could be someone inside. And what kind of credentials would that person have?
Typically, our Title I interventionists are former reading specialists. To be honest, with the adoption of ESSA and the removal of NCLB, we no longer have what were called Title I reading interventionists. That was actually taken from policy, actually. Policy 5202 no longer lists that position. And so, to be frank, these are women who previously served in that capacity as reading teachers in Title I schools. They are typically the folks who do this work for us as a reading interventionist, but there's no longer in West Virginia policy a reading interventionist, reading teacher position.
It's now been claimed, it's now titled just a Title I interventionist, is that what you're saying? What did they change it to between ESSA and NLB?
They really just vacated the position because what ESSA allows is flexibility for the school system to support a variety of positions based on the identified needs of the school and the need assessment. So, for example, we're as a district and as a board, you would no longer have to necessarily employ Title I reading teachers, where before that was pretty much all that one could contract using those dollars would be a Title I reading teacher. Now, for example, clinical social workers, a variety of, say, academic coaches, those are now employees of our school system that are supported with federal dollars. Where before, as Mr. Osborne would probably know, it was exclusively to support the Title I reading teacher position. So it is a major shift with the Every Student Succeeds Act, the flexibility that allows districts.
And that change really has just happened in the last 2 years?
It was
This year's the first of the
It was 2015 when President Obama signed the legislation.
All right. And did we have a motion and a second on that?
There's a motion and a second.
Second?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you for that clarification.
Unfinished business. Action on approval of Chapter 7 policy update on graduation requirements for the 2018-19 freshman students.
You get a couple suggestions, and I don't see the suggestion on the online here now, where we added that the foreign languages colleges may require up to or more than two foreign language credits, and that was on there when Mary Beth put it on there. It did not transpose onto your agenda here. I'll sort of make sure that that's on there. I sat with her. She put that on there. We double checked it, but for some reason it did not stay on the agenda here we're talking about. But that was added on there. And the other suggestion was about taking the grade levels away. I see with the English 9, 10, English 11, and 12, but those are specific WEVIS classes at the state or statewide. So we keep those grade levels on there because that's the adopted way of how the state identifies those courses. So I thought it better to leave those on there. Otherwise, we're going to confuse people on what they need to graduate. But,
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I've got a question. On our piece that we're seeing, Pat, that there's an asterisk at the bottom that does have that statement about the colleges may require 2 or more years. But is it your thought that it was going to be blocked out? Because that was my thought when I was looking at this, that there needs to be something, not just if I was reading through this, I don't think I'd go all the way to the bottom as a parent's perspective. I'd get to the personalized learning stuff and say, oh, yeah, you have no clue what that is, and go on. I really don't know what that is. I can see you can take CTE, but it says in there the 2 credits in 1 world language, but it's so mixed in this piece of personalized learning.
and what we did is put it down below the box there. It was written down. You have it below the box?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. I'm just trying to figure out if it maybe can go in the box but at the bottom, or something where it says 2 credits in 1 world language and in parentheses, put that statement next to it, or put an asterisk next to it that leads you down to that statement at the bottom. Something else that identifies.
So in the
for a parent.
personalized learning, but just extend the personalized learning box there to put that.
Mhm.
Sure.
So that it's near the language piece. Otherwise, I don't think I would connect the two.
Right, because I think how that was done was probably superimposed on a PDF form, and what we can do is create that box on a Word document or something and put that in there then.
Yeah, I like the statement. It's perfect. We just need to get it with foreign
The bottom of
language.
personalized learning within the box there.
I agree with her. I'd probably read over top of it if it's not put up there.
Sure, we can do that. So that's the last sentence there in personalized learning is where you're looking for that. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In the personalized education plan, 4 credits, it would be in that sentence, because that's where it's listed that you need to have, or you can have, 2 credits in one world language.
Okay.
And so if I'm looking at 2 credits in one world language, then I want to read after that colleges may
after that.
require 2 or more years of either change it to say one world language so it's the same, or make both of them the same if it has to, 'cause that says 2 separate things, just to make sure it's as clear as possible.
Sure. Can certainly do that.
And then the only other question I had is in the top for English language arts, if we leave the grades on them, that's fine, but there's nothing that defines up in ELA that dual enrollment is an option. So, or a college-bearing course is an option. So I still feel like, as a parent, I'm going to read this, but I still have no idea that I might be able to have that as an option for my 12th grade English class.
So along with the advanced placement comment there.
It should just be in that sentence. An advanced placement or dual enrollment English course may be substituted for the above courses.
Yeah, that would be good enough.
Okay.
And for the math, where's our WVU math class or our college math class? Is that, like, how would we know that was an option? We've got the Math 4, Trig Pre-Calc. Is that what we consider?
It's
not,
different.
right? Because, yeah, that's different. Or Math 4 Transitions or Transition Math for Seniors or any other 4th course option. See the chart.
It should just read the same way. We're an AP Mathematics or dual enrollment course.
Yeah, that's a good
Because
idea.
it's the
That
same
takes
as the
care of both.
English.
Right.
It's just WVU versus Shepherd or Blue Ridge. Was that all you had, Lori?
The only other piece I had, sorry, I tried to make notes. Under the PE or somewhere, it doesn't say anything. Are we just accepting that if we sign up for ROTC, that parents will know that that's not a credit, or the guidance counselors know that that's a credit if they do 2 years of that, or is there someplace we need to put that more clearly defined?
Can add that in there to the ROTC.
I don't know how that should be worded, that it's not confusing, or if anybody has any thoughts on that.
I think maybe you could word it with the same terminology that you do in ELA and mathematics. An ROTC course of study may be substituted for the equivalent physical education coursework, so that just keep the language consistent, so we'll recognize that.
That'd be good. That's all I have on this.
I had just one other comment. Since we are going with the state reduction of required credits to graduate, if we could work on the tiered or the advanced degree versus a regular graduation degree, if we could get that up and done.
Which Mr. Blanc and I discussed recently, our self-imposed deadline is to have to this board by before second semester a proposal. So to get a work group together with guidance counselors and teachers, and make a proposal to the board about what the requirements would be for an advanced diploma.
Okay, and then the other thing I had were, make sure that students have options and know what their options are for either work study or dual enrollment, or, if they meet all the criteria in their senior year and they have all these periods open and they don't want to take extracurricular activities such as, band or art or an extra math or science or whatever they choose, to make sure that they have options, not that we're just, releasing them out for half a day because they don't need the credits, but make sure there's a structured plan there to get them the information that they need.
At the same time, though, it also helps to not just automatically schedule them for 7 periods when we know that they only need, 2 classes or 4 classes or whatever the case may be. I know sometimes with the schedule, you just put them in. So, because that may allow us to do some other activities with them, with teachers, to be able to offer different classes if we had more time, but we really wouldn't know that if we just let the computer, if we don't do anything but autofill it. And it's already past the deadline to transfer somebody, move somebody, offer something else, schedule has been done, and then we don't have any options for students.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of adopting the Chapter 7 policy update?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. B, action on approval of Chapter 6 policy update for computer internet educational purpose and acceptable use of electronic resources, technologies, and the internet policy.
Okay, change we made, I think you can look down on the 4th page, and this is for for staff. We took away the parent consent on number 4 there. We thought that was more student specific. You can see that's slashed in red there. And then we put it down as far as the part about possibly having your license rescinded or revocated was also as part of the actions recommendation from would be the West Virginia Department of Education that would take that action upon our recommendation, were the 2 recommendations that I heard from our last meeting that we want to see added to there. That's on the bottom of page 4.
And then who would be responsible for making that recommendation? I guess
Do we have a
need to
motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Who would be responsible for making those recommendations to the state?
We would look to our superintendent for recommendation to have a license rescinded. No one else has the authority to make that recommendation.
So I guess what I'm asking is, so if a student comes in, a teacher would recommend that to a principal, then the principal would send that up. So it's going to kind of follow.
For personnel.
That's for personnel only.
We're talking about personnel.
Okay.
The students don't really have a.
I was thinking you were talking about a driver's license. That's why I'm like,
oh,
did that get in there? I was totally confused.
No, they're teaching.
That makes me
license.
feel better. That makes no sense. Okay, and so that underlined spot was the only spot in here other than the access, correct?
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of adopting Chapter 6 policy update?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. C, action on approval of Chapter 8 policy update on computer internet educational purpose and acceptable use of electronic resources, technologies, and the internet policy.
So not really the changes on that, because it wasn't personnel. We left pretty much, I believe the student one was, we left number 4 there about the parent consent. And we're not taking away student licenses. So that wasn't part of the recommendation.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All right. Questions or discussion with this one? Nothing? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. D, action on approval of Chapter 7 policy update on retest after failure.
And that was, we were going from 70% to 65% because of the change in the grading scale. And call your attention on the on that page there. It references 70% on number 2. We were capped the grade. It will be at 65%, where it's slashed at 65% in the first paragraph. But then on down later in the document, it talks about capping it at 70%, which will be capped at 65%. So it's consistent throughout.
All right, do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Questions? Comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. New business. Action on approval to appoint a treasurer for the Board of Education in accordance with West Virginia Code Section 1896.
This is the result of school board members attending training in Charleston, and there is a provision within the West Virginia Code that requires the annual appointment of a treasurer, and Ms. Roper actually clarified for us, which I hadn't been aware of, in smaller systems that don't have a treasurer, a chief financial officer, there's an appointment of that individual, and it came as a surprise to many of the larger systems that when they actually have someone who functions as their treasurer, they have a chief financial officer, they have that requirement still remains. There are many systems that had simply gotten away from doing that. They simply notified the state who their chief financial officer was, and there was a presentation at the School Board Association's training at which they impressed upon us that continued to be in there, whether it was redundant or not, so that we needed to appoint a treasurer. So here we are.
And it's just a title. It's not a non-compensated position. It's just a title. All right. Do we have a motion?
Second. Do we have anybody interested?
You noticed that when Ms. Marone walked into the room, I thanked her for coming.
I heard that non-compensated thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like a voluntold position.
It's a volunteer position, I'm sure.
So I noticed that the Journal gave Ms. Marone that title March 14th. And I was just wondering, I'm going to vote against it just to counteract the state, because we worked really hard to get local control, and then to put little things like this in every year, it just for the record, I would say no. We already have a chief financial officer, someone who has been serving in that position, has been bonded for years. To make us do that every year is just no.
Redundant.
All right. Well,
that may make a really good point for our legislative agenda for this year, to say, why do you break the time and effort that we spend on each one of these little things is time and effort that we don't spend on really big important things that are facing our community that we've got to work through. So,
all right. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. And then that brings us to possible executive session.
an executive session for personnel.
For personnel?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well then,
and I anticipate action.
You anticipate action? Perfect. Well, why don't we go ahead and take just a 2-minute break before we go into executive session? Does that work for everybody? Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
You need more than 2 minutes? Okay, a 5-minute break. All right.